What is
Hey
up,
guys.
gang? Thank y'all for tuning back in with us. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Hit that thumbs up for us, notification bells, because we always dropping some heat for y'all. All right, so it's getting close to Halloween, and we gotta get something that's a little Halloweenish going on over here. So D is looking like that because D doesn't like certain genres and topics, and this is probably one she doesn't want to be in. So be prepared. Top 3 scariest audio recordings we're diving into. Hey, we gotta go with the season. All right, stick with the season.
You don't like
The Growl.
the growl?
In 2015, 32-year-old Henry McCabe was living just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, with his wife Corrine and their 2 daughters. Henry was a Liberian immigrant who worked as an auditor for the Minnesota Department of Revenue. On September 6th, Henry's wife and his 2 kids head out to California to visit with some family, leaving Henry alone. Henry decides, you know what, I don't get it.
That's where we from. Don't be too close now. See, look, now y'all playing in my territory. Don't come too close. Let it be somewhere in the outskirts of Cali.
A little off topic, but it's funny because you said that because you said California, right? It was so funny because someone was like, the one thing I learned from the first 48 is never to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
For real. Hey, no, they ain't lying.
But then it right because you said California. That's what we say. Like,
come
we don't
on,
want to hear nothing about where we're
Right.
from.
Chance to go out very much because I'm working all the time, I got family, and so tonight I'm going to cut loose. So he calls his 2 very close friends and they decide to go to a nightclub. They get to the nightclub and Henry very quickly starts drinking a lot of alcohol, and lots of people that were at the club
Henry
would
was
say
turned up.
he
He had a
seemed
long
pretty
wait.
intoxicated.
Nothing
The
wrong
trio
with
would
that,
stay at the nightclub till about 2 in the morning, and then when they left, Henry, who had driven there and met his 2 friends at the club, was about to drive himself home when one of his 2 friends said, "Wait a minute, you can't be driving.
Yeah.
We'll
he
give
been
you a ride
drinking."
home." So Henry gets in the car with them and they start driving to Henry's house. But when they're about halfway there, Henry tells them to go to a very specific gas station. He said he wanted to get food and a drink, but the gas station he was trying to go to was 2 miles in the opposite direction away from his house. And his friends are telling him, you know, we can bring you to a closer gas station. We can bring you somewhere that's more convenient. But Henry was really aggressive and very adamant that that was the gas station he wanted to go to. And in fact, I don't even want you to wait for me. I want you to drop me off. I will get whatever I want, and then I'll walk home. And his friends put up a bit of a fight, but ultimately they relented and they drove him to this gas station.
Dang,
they dropped him
some
off,
friends
they watched
just
him
let
go
you do
inside, and they turned around and they left. At
Oh.
2:28 in the morning, Henry's wife, Corrine, looked at her phone and she saw she had a missed call and a voicemail from Henry. She opens it up and she listens to it and she's horrified at what she hears. On the voicemail, Henry sounds incredibly distressed. He's yelling that he's been shot and it sounds like he's in pain. And then in the background, you hear this really intense growling sound. It's pretty easy to distinguish. And then Henry starts screaming about whatever is growling at him. And then Henry yells out, "Stop it," before the phone cuts out. The full 2-minute voicemail has never been released by police. This is what was made publicly available.
See, it's stuff like this that be making it seem like it's other stuff out here.
I don't
walking
hear
around.
him saying nothing. I just hear a growl or a noise.
This is why I don't be out at certain hours no more. Cause listen,
He didn't speak not once. I don't even think that was a yell. I don't.
No, see, my mom and them always said, ain't nothing out past 12, but legs. Ain't nothing open past 12, but legs.
Oh, I think you meant people like walking.
No, legs. Legs and trouble is the only thing open.
Gas
Get in the house.
stations, in and out.
No, see, that's why I don't go out past a certain time no more.
Right after Corrine listens to this voicemail, she tries calling Henry, and it goes straight to voicemail. So she tries calling Henry's brother. She can't get in touch with him, so she calls the police. So the police go out looking for Henry. They go to his house. He's not there. And then they track down the
Obviously.
2 friends he was with, who immediately tell them, "Hey, we dropped him off at this gas station. We know it's a little bit strange that he wanted to go here, but he was insistent, and so that's where we dropped him off."
Should've
So the
called his
police
wife
look
and told
around
her.
the gas station. They talk to the attendant. They talk to some people that were there. And no one knows where Henry is. So at this point, the police pull Henry's phone records, and they can see he placed a call to his wife at about 2:23 in the morning, but they can't determine where he was when he placed this call. The assumption is he was at the gas station. Then, just a few minutes later, he places another call to his brother, and his brother would report to police that all Henry was doing on the call was just sobbing. And again, with that phone call, the police were not able to pinpoint where Henry was when he made the call. And following that call to his brother, he turned his phone off. Several hours later, his phone would turn back on and it would ping about 4 miles away from this gas station, and then his phone would turn off again. And the police are thinking, you know what, it's a grown man. He went out drinking with his friends. He's bound to sober up and turn up at some point.
Sure.
Let's just wait this one out. But Henry didn't turn up, and days turned into weeks, turned into months, and no one's heard from Henry. No one has any idea where he is. On November 2nd, so 2 months after Henry goes missing, his body is found in a lake up near the area where his cell phone had last pinged. This area is a very difficult area to access. There's no public access to this lake, and the lake sits in a very heavily forested area. Even though Henry had told his wife on the voicemail that he had been shot, and it sounds like he's being attacked on the voicemail, there were no injuries to his body. And so even though the case was bizarre to everybody involved, they ruled it an accidental drowning. Some say he took his own life because he had recently bounced a check for his rent and he had a bad performance review at work. Others say he was just intoxicated and stumbled into the lake and drowned. But neither of those explanations account for the very obvious growling and strange sounds that we heard on his voice.
Now that you think about it, if you really, 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 really turn your neck a little and think about it.
Turn your neck. Yeah, turn your neck. Don't forget
What
to turn
if that growling was in a sense like, because like I said, it didn't sound like he was screaming or nothing. What if it was just like him going into water? Like, you know,
that does make sense though.
You know, like when you put something in water and it makes like that.
Yeah, but why would the phone still be like, it pinged 4 times?
No, it pinged when it was called. So remember how she said that she got that voicemail?
Yes.
And then when she called him back, it went straight to voicemail, meaning it got wet and died.
I mean, you could be onto something. I was thinking that too. It do sound like some water, like somebody needs water.
Yeah, so I think maybe he tripped and possibly tried calling her, like drunk walking, you know, drunk talking.
I just don't understand. I don't get the point of the friends though. Like even
that's not friends. We need to switch that word around. People,
I'd be like, bro, especially when he not driving. Sit your tail down. We driving you home.
You're not driving. 2, if I'm driving and you come and you open the door and get out that car, that's on you. Look how we just gonna involve the police because people gonna see like, oh my god, he fell over the car.
No, he getting dropped off.
3, I'm calling your wife. If we are friends the way we say we are, I'm calling your wife and I'm gonna say your husband's out here acting a plum fool. Come talk to him or come get him.
That don't make no sense. Yeah, that's weird on the friend's part.
Voicemail. And so to this day, Henry McCabe's death remains a mystery.
Who was calling?
911 dispatchers hear a lot of interesting stories coming from the other end of the phone. But one group of dispatchers out of Reno, Nevada may win the award for the creepiest 911 calls ever received. When the details of these calls they got were put online, the internet went crazy. Here is their story. There was this old couple that lived about 20 miles east of Reno, Nevada. In 2010, the husband dies, leaving the wife all alone in this house. Shortly after his passing, she began calling 911 2-3 times a week, requesting things like, can you please put some water on to boil? Hey, can you change the thermostat? Aww. It was clear she was showing signs of dementia, and the dispatchers were respectful of her and gently told her that this is 911, you can only call if it's an emergency, and at some point the woman would understand her mistake and she would say sorry and she would hang up. No first responders were ever sent out for these calls because it didn't seem like an emergency, it just seemed like a confused elderly person. But no matter how many times they told her, she kept calling back. And eventually her calls took a turn. Instead of calling 911 to ask for help with mundane tasks around the house, she would call 911 believing she was talking directly to her deceased husband, John. The dispatcher would pick up and the woman would say, John, where are you? John, John. By this time, the dispatchers had gotten so many calls from this woman, they would recognize her address coming through and they knew what to expect. They would answer the phone, they'd be respectful, and they would tell her like they always did, this is 911, you can't call here, you need to talk to your family. And again, they did not send a responding unit out to her because it just seemed like she was confused, not in any danger.
So where do you think this is going?
I think
Miss, I can solve the mystery early?
I think I have a guess. I think that something's really gonna happen, and because she already has this name for herself, that they're not gonna take it serious. Because she,
I'm getting that part, but they said like the title is who's calling. So what if ain't nobody calling? What if they arrive at this house and ain't nobody there?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? I'm digging deep. First 48 then got me out here.
Calling. Okay, I can see that.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? I watched that first 48.
Okay.
You know what? Take out the trash. They be having titles like "Take out the trash." Obviously, they gonna somebody in the trash. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. Who is calling? Wait, so who was calling? Who is calling?
I think it was who was calling.
Or because they know that her husband died or whatever, and it's not that 911 is gonna call from her house, and it's gonna be her husband, and they're gonna be like, "How is it her husband if she said he died?"
But if she killed him. See what I'm saying?
But one day when she called, she sounded frantic and scared.
John, please come home. Help me. I need help. John, come home.
This time, they would send first responders out to the woman's house.
Okay.
When the responding unit arrives at her house just minutes after she had placed the 911 call, they go to the door and they're knocking and they're yelling for her, and she's not coming to the door, and it's all quiet in the house. The door is unlocked, so they open it up and they announce themselves. They walk inside and immediately they can tell the heat is not on because it's very, very cold inside the house. They look around the first floor and they can't find her, and there's no sign of a struggle or any obvious problems that could have happened inside of the house. So they go upstairs and they start searching all the rooms and no one's there until they get to the last room, and it's the bedroom. They go inside and there's an older woman who's lying on the bed, and she's clearly deceased and has been for several hours because rigor mortis had already set in. The police are able to confirm that the woman who's lying on the bed is the same woman who owns the house and lives there. And at this point, they call back to dispatch and they tell them, hey, you know, the woman that you claim made this 911 call, well, it can't have been her. Because based on rigor mortis, she was dead at the time that 911 call was made. But the dispatchers are like, no way. We know what she sounds like. We speak to her multiple times a week. We have a whole protocol built when we see her address come across because we speak to her so often. That 911 call that you got that led you to that house where she was, that call was made by her. What they ultimately decide is the reason for this discrepancy is she didn't have rigor mortis. She was just stiff because it was really cold inside of her house, and that she had died in those couple of minutes between leaving the 911 call and when officers arrived. But in the back of everybody's minds, they're a little freaked out. A few days go by and another call is placed to 911 coming from that woman's home address. The dispatcher sees...
Could you imagine?
Was I right?
No, but
was I right?
But I'm saying,
was I right?
Yes. Could you imagine
As
being
a
that dispatcher?
Yeah.
I'm not answering it, bro. I'm cool.
Hey, if I'm on the computer, I'm looking at the person over me. I'm not answering it. You better answer it.
Ain't nobody let in.
We know someone died in that house, so ain't nobody in there.
I don't need to answer. I don't need to send no services to see who on the end of this line.
You get it.
Ask your mama to answer, because I'm not going to be the one. Here you go. Ask your mama.
On that door that I'm not going to answer.
That and has to do a double take. Like, that's not possible. But they're thinking, okay, this could be a relative, it could be a friend, it could be anything. Picks up the phone and she's shocked when it's the same woman who is frantically yelling for John to come here, save me, help me, I need help. And the dispatcher, who's well aware of the history and well aware that this woman's supposed to be dead, stays calm, goes through the procedure, tries to get more information from this woman. But the call ends abruptly and there's no more information to be had. And so, not knowing what else to do, she asks a responding unit to go check this house out.
I'm not.
The responding unit goes over to the property. They knock on the door. No one's inside. The door is actually still open. They go in. The house is empty. There's no one there. There's no one that could have made that call.
Don't ask me
At this point, dispatch is like, okay, this has got to be a prank. But the next day, same thing happens. Here comes a call from the dead woman's house. They pick it up and it's this distraught woman yelling for help. I need my husband. And the dispatcher is trying to get more information.
She's trying to get a hold of her husband.
And then the line cuts out. Once again, they have to send responders to this location because this woman has called 911 and is saying that she needs help.
Even as a police officer now. Ask somebody else to do it.
So in a sense, she can't like cross over.
Man,
I'm thinking of the Ghost Whisperer. I used to watch that show. I used to love it. I'm thinking of the Ghost Whisperer. She can't cross over, so she's like in a sense telling her.
Don't call me. I'm not. Listen, I'm not purgatory. Don't call me. Don't listen.
That is so sad. Or what if,
ma'am?
What if it's like like something programmed to do it, like,
ma'am? I'm not purgatory. I ain't Jesus. Don't ask me. Don't call this number no more. Don't call this number no more.
See, but if it was me, I feel like I'd ask more questions.
He tried.
Like when she calls me, I'm gonna say, okay, where are you?
They said they tried. The call ends.
Like, damn.
That's what I'm saying. Don't call. Listen, lady, listen to me, spirit. Call the spirit hotline. Call whoever you need to call. It ain't this line. This line ain't gonna get you to heaven to hell. It ain't gonna get you there. Heaven to hell. You got to call somebody else for that. Stop calling him. Lose this number. Call 411, not 911. Get information.
911. It's 3 numbers.
Get 411. They got information. Does 411 still work?
Yes, it does.
That's correct. Do it.
Yes.
And once again, the officers get to the house and it's vacant. Just like when she was alive, these calls would persist multiple times a week. They continued even after her house was broken into and burned to the ground. There's not even a house anymore. And there are still calls coming through from that address to 911. Finally, the police get in touch with the phone company and they explain the situation, and the phone company looks at their records and they say, actually, her phone line was disconnected almost immediately after she was deceased. But they tell police there's a chance that it might not have been disconnected properly at the site, and that could be a reason why it's still working. So they send a lineman to go check out the actual property to confirm her lines were disconnected properly and that no wires were getting crossed. And he said all of it checked out. Everything has been detached this whole time. The phone company thought perhaps there was a digital recording of her that got trapped in their system and was randomly bouncing to their call center. But the dispatchers would say, you know, it doesn't sound like a recording.
Too many scenarios y'all trying to play with.
Time. It's always the same message. She's yelling for her husband to come save her. But the way she sounds is always different. It's a unique phone call every single time. So because there wasn't a definitive explanation for why this was happening, they had to treat each call like it was serious. And so multiple times a week for a year, they received these ghost calls and had to send out responding officers to check on her.
So when the house was burnt down, what would y'all pull up to? Just
dirt. Just look, make sure there's nothing there.
Well, we gotta pull up at that one spot again. I'm not going, bro. Like,
Wilburn, it's literally tore down in a bunch of dirt. What
if you go out there and she's standing in the dirt?
Well, then there was a good reason you went.
No, it ain't. No, it ain't. They need to go pray holy water, but pray over it. Pray over it. Ask the Lord, whatever this is, have it stop calling me.
Even though the house was gone and there was nothing there and there was never anyone there. It was just a vacant lot. And then finally, a year after this woman has died, the calls just abruptly stopped.
She made it.
And the police did not launch an investigation into what it was.
Made it out.
Because the reality is police need to prioritize things that are threats to people or places.
Yeah.
And this really wasn't either of those things. It was just really bizarre. And so the official explanation for how a dead woman could be calling 911 from a non-existent phone line in a non-existent house for a year is, we don't know.
So I blame her husband because he could have came and got her. Obviously, she calling for you, sir.
He probably wasn't ready for her either.
He probably didn't make it to the upper room. She couldn't find him. She probably been going to the upper room and he didn't go to the upper room, so he couldn't come get her. But she made it a year later, or wherever she went. She made it somewhere because the call stopped. So obviously she went somewhere. We don't know where she went.
After a year.
She made it. It took a year, but she made it. This title right here just don't even sound right.
The following stories all take place in the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Okay,
on New Year's Eve, 1980, 20-year-old Karen Potak was out at a bar with her friends celebrating, and at some point in the night, she slipped out because she didn't want to stay any later, and she began walking home. Now, she didn't have a jacket on, and it was very cold outside.
She ain't got no
was
jacket on.
through the streets, and a man sees her and pulls over and offers to give her a ride home. She's kind of intoxicated, and so she agrees to get in his car, and they drive off.
Girl, well, she's intoxicated. She's not. Her mind's not.
No, we're not gonna do the whole intoxicated thing. What is wrong with y'all people, man? You don't just be letting people come pick you up. I don't care how drunk I am. Keeping it on moving. Come pick me up. Don't come pick me up.
But imagine like your friends come outside looking for you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she's gone."
That ain't friends that letting people leave drunk like this. That's why I don't understand. They keep saying going out with friends. These ain't friends that's allowing you to leave drunk in these places by yourself. Get some new friends, y'all.
Hours later, around 3 a.m., the police received this phone call.
Yes, please, this is an emergency. Please send a squad car to Pierce Butler Road, Malmberg Manufacturing Company Machine Shop. Please send an ambulance too. There's a girl hurt there.
Can you tell me what happened to her?
Just hurry. She's laying on the ground in the back by the railroad tracks by the engine room. Hurry.
Jesus, he got something to do with it. Because why are you so specific in what's going on?
Yeah, he's so calm. It's like a force.
Like, giving out. If I'm seeing something, I'm not going to. It's at the blah, blah, blah. Like all this information he giving.
He's guilty.
Address.
I don't know.
Who are you?
Using this
something.
information from the caller, the police arrive in the back of that building and they find Karen Potak. She had been repeatedly bludgeoned over the head with a tire iron and then left for dead. Miraculously, she would survive, but because of her head injury, she forgot almost everything about that night, including the description of the guy who picked her up and who probably attacked her and who probably was the one who called police. So the police tried to interview some people in the area around where she was found, but it was a really deserted area and no one knew anything, and there was no physical evidence left at the scene, so the case went cold. Then, 5 months later, the police receive another phone call.
Oh, you find me? I just stabbed somebody with an ice pick. I can't stop myself. I keep killing somebody.
Hello? Are you there?
At this point, the police were not connecting this call with the call that immediately preceded finding Karen Potak, meaning they did not think that was the same person. And since in this call there were no instructions on where to find this person, they didn't really have anything to go on, so they took note of it, but ultimately kind of disregarded it. But just a few hours later, a group of teenagers were walking through the forest when they found a dead body. The body belonged to 18-year-old Kimberly Compton, who had literally just moved to Minnesota. She'd graduated high school and decided she wanted to start fresh in Minnesota. She hopped in a bus, she goes to Minnesota, she gets off the bus, she goes into the first restaurant she sees, which is a diner. She sits down by herself, she's eating some food, and a man approaches her and says, "Hey, can I sit down with you?" And so she lets him sit down and he asks, who are you? What are you doing here? And she says, "Oh, I just moved here." And this guy offers to drive her around town and show her the sights.
Same guy.
And she's like, "Great." 15 minutes later, he would kill her with an ice pick. At this point, police are beginning to suspect that this person who keeps calling them immediately before they're finding women that have been attacked might be the same person. And 2 days after Compton was killed, they get another call that confirms this.
Don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry what I did to Compton. I couldn't help it. Don't know why I had to stab her. I'm so upset about it. I keep getting drunk every night. I can't believe I did it. It's like a big dream. I can't think of being locked up. If I get locked up, I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than get locked up. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
From this point forward, they referred to this caller as the weepy-voiced killer. And even though they had his voice recorded, they didn't have any physical evidence because he didn't leave any at the scene with Compton either.
Stop with the first 48 stuff. The weepy killer. Y'all always gotta come out with some.
He wasn't even weepy.
Like, stop. Y'all always gotta create it. Why we gotta create a name for
I
everything?
feel like I would say my name for this would probably be like.
Why it even gotta be a name?
Call it like. What is it called? When you do something over and over again, reoffense or what is it? Second offense. Offenser. I don't know. Since he's saying stupid stuff like offenser, I'd be like offenser.
I don't even know why we gotta give it a name.
Maybe offenser.
So they didn't have much to go on. The police would go to the diner and they would talk to the staff that was there, and they would give a general description of the weepy voice killer, but it wasn't enough to pinpoint a suspect. So once again, this case went cold too. 6 months later, the police received yet another call.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one over in St. Paul. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm sick. I think I'm going to kill myself, I think.
Where are you?
I'm just going to. If somebody dies with a red shirt on, it's me. I've killed more people. I'll never make it to heaven.
Calm down.
A day later, they find the body of 40-year-old Barbara Simons floating in the Mississippi River, tucked up against some brush. The night before, Barbara had been out at a bar and she had offered a cigarette to a man she hadn't met before. They began flirting and kind of hit it off, and at one point they were going to leave together, and before they left, Barbara turns to one of the waitresses and kind of jokingly says, "Boy, I hope he's nice because I'm leaving with him." And the waitress, for whatever reason, had a really bad feeling about it and made a point of getting a really good look at the man she was leaving with. And that man, of course, would turn out to be the weepy voice killer, and as soon as he and Barbara left the bar, he would stab her to death and throw her in the Mississippi River. After the police began investigating this, they came to the bar and they interviewed that waitress. And she said, "I got a really good look at this guy." And so the police show her 100 different mugshots of previously convicted felons in the area. And she immediately identifies 38-year-old Paul Stefani and says, "That's the guy." Paul had been convicted for aggravated assault, and he also had a history of mental illness. Paul is immediately put under surveillance, but within 24 hours, he manages to ditch his tail and goes straight into downtown Minneapolis, where he picks up 19-year-old street worker Denise Williams.
Not stopping.
Paul took her down a dark alleyway, and she kind of sensed something was wrong. And so she grabbed a glass bottle that was sitting on the floor of the car. And when he went to attack her, she managed to hit him in the head and cut his face really, really badly. And she managed to protect herself enough that she could get out of the car and run away and save her own life. And a neighbor saw her running out of the car and kind of saw the whole exchange, didn't like how it looked, so they called 911. When police showed up, Paul was long gone. That same night, police get another call from the weepy voice killer. This one's a little bit different. He's actually asking for help for himself.
I need an ambulance.
Where?
1505 Westminster.
1505
Yes,
Westminster. What's the problem?
I'm all cut up. I got beat up.
What's your apartment number?
208. I'm bleeding
208. Where are you bleeding from?
from my arm, my face, my head.
Now, by the time this call is being made, the audio recordings of his previous phone calls had been made public. They were aired on radio shows, on TV. People had heard his voice, and it's fairly distinctive.
That's probably how they
And the
got stuff out
dispatcher
back
recognized his
across the
voice
road
and
back
told
then.
police, there's a chance the weepy voice killer just called us. So an ambulance comes and picks up Paul Stefani and brings him to the hospital, and when he's sitting in his hospital bed, police walk in and they apprehend him. He pled not guilty, and prosecutors did not actually have that much evidence connecting him to each of these attacks. They had these audio recordings, but that was about it. And so ultimately, he got 58 years in prison, not a life sentence. But considering his age, it wound up functioning like a life sentence. 12 years into that sentence, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was told he only had a year to live. And so it was at this point that he confessed to all of the attacks, including one they didn't know about. He murdered 33-year-old Kathleen Greening in her own home. He just didn't make a phone call to police afterwards. Paul would die shortly after his confessions.
That is crazy. See, I was a little unprepared because I thought I was finna start, like, you know, because you said I was.
I thought, because it said scary. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
well,
But
next
it is
time-
scary.
next
It's still
time-
scary, though.
Next
Those are
time,
people's
be more
lives.
Specific.
People out here
Be more
dying.
Specific.
And it was, the old lady was dead and calling people, calling the police.
But this was super this was super sad. And I feel like that's dumb that they didn't have enough evidence because the evidence was there.
He still got 58.
Yeah, that's true.
And he died.
But
Terminal
that's so
cancer.
sad. That is very sad. But sometimes people get feelings in their guts and they go with it. And good thing that girl did, because can you imagine if she didn't? Like, there probably would have been way more, and it probably would have,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
He would have kept going.
But overall,
This was a
sad.
crazy
But I like
video.
videos like this, and it's not like that. Like, I don't like them dying. But I just like videos like this because it's just like,
This is wild. This is wild. Well, y'all wanted some. We might keep up with a couple more. We find some more like spooky type,
yes,
Halloweenish type reactions. So if y'all got something for us, let us know now.
Send us our way. Send them our way.
And we will continue. Let us know what y'all thought about this one. Don't forget to subscribe if you new, like, notification bell. See y'all on the next one.